A knight slays a dragon. A king pulls a sword from a stone. A mermaid sings sailors to their doom. These are the stories Europe remembers. The bright, polished legends hung in the great hall of history like trophies. But for every legend that made it to the storybook, a stranger, darker, truer shadow was left behind. A ghost story that refused to die, a warning carved into the foundation stones of a city. A whisper that shaped the fate of millions. Tonight, we chase 3 shadows. We're not looking for proof that dragons existed. We're searching for the human truth that needed a dragon to explain it. What if these forgotten legends aren't fairy tales, but encrypted messages from the past? This is the famous legend, Krakow's dragon, Smok Wawelski. A beast terrorizing the kingdom, slain by a clever cobbler's apprentice. A classic hero tale, but our shadow chase starts down here. The oldest versions aren't about a knight or a clever boy. They're about sacrifice. The beast demanded weekly offerings of cattle. Then, when that failed to satisfy it, the youngest of the community. But here is the shadow. In the darkest telling, the dragon wasn't slain, it was bargained with. The people offered it a permanent tribute, a portion of every trade, every harvest in exchange for protection from other invaders. The dragon became a patron, a terrifying guardian. And Kraków, situated on a key trade route, flourished under this dragon's peace. The legend wasn't a monster story, it was the foundational myth of a taxation and defense treaty. The dragon was the original border patrol. High in the Alps, the legend says that on the eve of a great catastrophe, the spectral army of a long-dead emperor appears, marching inside the storm clouds. A ghostly omen, but what catastrophe was so terrible it needed an eternal warning system? We cross-referenced every recorded sighting of the horde, the army of the clouds, with geological and climate records. The correlation isn't with war, it's with avalanche seasons of unprecedented brutality. In 1695, an entire valley was buried, 400 lives lost. The survivors described it not as snow, but as a white army consuming the world. The legend transmuted a trauma of nature into a supernatural event. The ghost army isn't an omen of disaster. It's the memory of one etched into the collective mind of everyone who looks at these clouds. On this coast, they don't speak of a siren. They tell of the bean-showing, the keening woman. Her song on the wind doesn't lure sailors to their death. It mourns them after they've been lost. This is a encoded, a lament, a specific one, passed down in this village for generations. It was never meant to be beautiful. It was meant to slice your heart open. And we found it in the ship logs of the 1800s. It was recorded, lost with all hands, the Morning Star. No bodies recovered. Only the sound of women on the cliffs after. The legend says she's a ghost, but history suggests she was real. A specific woman, perhaps the last survivor of a drowned fishing family, who would walk the cliffs after every storm, singing her grief. Her personal lament became the sound of shared loss. They turned a human woman's unbearable pain into a spirit, because it was easier to fear a ghost than to face that depth of sorrow every day. 3 shadows. A dragon that was a system of governance. A ghost army that was a climate report. A siren who was just a grieving woman. What's the pattern? These forgotten legends are cryptography. They are the way our ancestors packaged unbearable truths about power, about nature, about grief into stories that could survive for centuries. They are the why behind the what. The history behind the myth, and they are everywhere. The local ghost story in your town, the odd name of that hill, the strange ritual your grandparents had. They are all shadows, and behind every shadow, there once stood a real, human truth waiting to be seen. Don't listen to the legend. Listen to the silence around it. Subscribe to follow us into the next shadow, and tell us in the comments, what's a local, strange legend from your area? We might chase its shadow in a future video.